Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hiring Excellence. I'm Johnny Campbell, your host and CEO and co founder of Social Talent. And today we have a special festive edition of the podcast as we're broadcasting this just before Christmas in 2025. I'm actually thrilled to be joined by my business partner, Vincent O'Donoghue, who I tethered to me 19 years ago. He's been stuck with me ever since. He's dying to get away. He's wondering what the heck he's doing on a podcast with me at Christmas wearing a Santa hat. But Vince, you're very welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Johnny. It's taken 19 years to get me on a podcast. This is my very, very first one. So cut me slack. Be nice to me.
I make a promise you won't be back for another 19 years. that helps you. And folks, for some context, we want to have a bit of fun today, right? It's nearly Christmas. Hope you're all winding down. We talk a lot about serious hiring excellence. Now we're going to talk about the people that got hired into companies that are trying to bring hiring excellence to their organizations, as you folks have some weird backgrounds, as we've discovered over the last 2 weeks. I want to start maybe by telling you a little bit of a story. Myself and Vince were in Dallas last month, and we were having a wonderful barbecue lunch with our good friend Russell over Paramount Pictures. And we got talking about what do we all used to do before we got into recruiting. And Vince shared what is arguably a very funny story, but I'll let you decide in a few minutes when he shares it, about one of his jobs before recruiting. And we thought, you know what, why don't we put it out on LinkedIn and ask our friends and listeners what jobs they had before getting into recruiting. And holy cow, the responses we got were just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And some of you have kindly sent in some audio and video stories to make it a little bit more interesting than me and Vince reading them out. But actually, before I do that, before we bring in some of those fun stories, I'd love in your comments, by the way, if you're listening to this live, what are your stories? If you missed the original post, if not, send them in to us if they're better than some of the stories we share here. But Vince, long before your fantastic career in recruiting and software and social talent, you had a different trajectory. Maybe you'll open us up by telling us about how you thought your life would pan out in the career you started in.
Yeah. So I had a dream of becoming a filmmaker. It's funny that it came up with Russell and Paramount, given the film connection there. But anyway, I had dreams of becoming a film producer, and so I studied and I did a master's in film and television, thinking I was the dogs, whatever. And ended up landing a job with a production company in the west coast of Ireland, in a place called Connemara. For those who don't know it, it's like the dark side of the moon. It's a lovely place, but very remote. And I was working for Roger Corman's production company. Roger Corman was this B-movie producer in the US and set up a studio in Ireland. So we were filming effectively horror movies in the west of Ireland. But I arrived with my master's degree thinking I was something, which I clearly wasn't. I think I'd made a mistake in my interview saying that I would do anything for the role. I'd clean toilets, I'd do whatever they needed, just needed to get a start. Yeah, I may have forgotten that, but they certainly didn't. So my very, very first engagement on a movie set, degree in hand, I got this call on my walkie-talkie to say, "Hey, Vince, can you go to Channel 3? I need you to do something for me." And the lead actor of that movie, the movie is called A Very Unlucky Leprechaun, a classic, I'm sure everybody's seen it, had mistakenly not known that his trailer was not plumbed. So I was asked, could I go to the side, and know this at this point, could I go to the side of the trailer, open the little door at the side of the trailer and deal with the problem inside? Opened up, and yeah, there was, I'm trying to keep this as clean as possible, but last night's dinner was there, and that was my very...
Shall we say the Yule log waiting for you, Vince?
Ooh, yeah, ho, very much Yule log. So that was my very first experience of a movie set with my degree, which I might as well have helped clean up with. But it was a good experience, and you know what, you these things all make you stronger. But there was some kind of better perks to the job, because most of the movies starred one kind of aging actor, and then a host of Playboy models, which for a 22-year-old boy from little old Ireland, arriving into a movie set with loads of Playboy actresses was kind of interesting, to say the least. So yeah, I was kind of an assistant director, so I'd have to bring them to set, bring them back. I was always the perfect gent, of course. But when we had a clothes set, which involved maybe a little bit of nudity, and one particular scene sticks out where one of the actresses was bound by a warlock to a tabernacle, and we had a
As you
clothes,
do.
as you do,
You do when you're a warlock. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was also the warlock stunt double. You know, we multitasked, but this was a closed set, and so nobody was allowed on except for me because I was looking after this actor, and then cameras and director and so on, but very limited crew. But my job, as the lady was tied to the tabernacle, was give her water, obviously, which I struggled not to spill, given her state of undress, and then also she had to maintain. She was in a fiery furnace, warlock lair tabernacle. She had to appear wet. How can I say it any other way? Sweaty. That's a better word. So I had a spritzer thing that you use to spray plants, and I had to, just make sure that she looked like she was very hot. Again, I've had worse jobs, but I don't think any better.
There's no until I met you, Johnny.
No. That was the peak of my career.
It's not coming.
But anyway, at some point, money took over in my mind frame, and I went, you know what, I better get started earning some cash. And the movie business, unless you're successful, certainly in the west coast of Ireland, ain't one where you're going to make cash.
So I think, you think about recruiting. Many of us in recruiting have come from crazy different backgrounds, right? So maybe lawyers and doctors come from the same background and they get into the profession the same way. I think people from all types could get into recruiting, from all backgrounds, who've all done interesting, weird things before they get into recruiting, right? I think you and I are no different. I want to just call out some of the best ones I thought. I know we saw on the notes. I'm going to jump into Andy Poland's comment. He replied saying, he had many jobs: lifeguard and swim instructor, and swim coach at a high school and UNC Colorado, DJ at a radio station, law enforcement and space systems operator, USAF web developer. Today, in addition to recruiting, I also do wildlife photography and teach at a college part-time. This guy was a space systems operator and ends up recruiting. I just don't think that's a progression. Maybe much prefers that, but I thought that was an interesting route take.
I liked Rick Sondy's one. He was a fighter pilot for the Indian Air Force before accidentally landing into recruiting, and I wondered, was that a Freudian slip that he landed into recruiting? And he's loved every moment since. But an Air Force pilot, wow, amazing.
I'll read one more before we listen to our first guest. I was an assistant swim coach. This comes from Shannon, our good friend Shannon Pritchett. Many of you know Shannon. I was an assistant swim coach for Vanderbilt University. I went from recruiting high school athletes to Java developers practically overnight. To make extra cash during the transition, I waited tables at this new trendy restaurant in Nashville called Sambuca. It just closed down. I had a C-list celebrity regular who was an 80s pop star who eventually got the courage to ask me out on a date. It ended with him chasing me down the street with a Pop-Tart. I'll save the details for the podcast. And in further comments, the actual celebrity was revealed, but you'll have to check the original post to find that out. I think it's just kind of says it all. Simon, our producer, is waiting in the wings. Simon, do you want to introduce our first guest who's going to tell their story, and maybe let us know who it is, or maybe they'll tell us themselves who they are?
I'm Charlie Cardenas, and my current role is a senior HR rep with Atria Products USA, Inc. I don't currently actually do any recruiting or TA, but I've worked in HR for 20 years and have done much recruiting and TA work during that time. My weird job was being a goose wrangler. I did that in the summers of 2003 and 2004. Goose wrangler is the word that I'm going to use for it. It's definitely not the official job title. The position was farm work, so it was a lot of doing the things, picking things up, making sure that the things that the geese needed were where they needed to be, caring for the livestock, taking care of any issues, problems, things that come up on farms. It was really interesting. It was a really interesting job.
Goose wrangler.
I've never met a goose wrangler before. You, Vince?
No, no, don't think so. Maybe sorry, chicken chokers. Is that it? Yeah,
I have met people who killed animals for a living and
yeah, I
don't
definitely.
regret moving on from it. All right, yeah.
Yeah, definitely have. I had friends who worked in an abattoir for about 3 hours, and both ran out of the place because they just couldn't hack it. It was too much. But
I like this unusual one, Judith Vasiliadis. I'm probably mispronouncing your name, Judith. My apology. She worked as a project admin for a wildlife conservation project in Zambia. Interesting enough, and she's a trained Venetian plasterer.
Wow.
well,
They say the old skills are dying, Vince, but Venetian plasterer. There you go.
there's a guy, Dan Nuru. Hi, Dan. He was a moss farmer in Tassie. They dug moss out of swamps, brought to hothouses, dried it, picked all the crap out of it, dried it some more, picked more crap out of it. Sounds like my first job. Dried it more, packaged it up, and sent it to Japan for their gardens, etc. It was a great when I was a boy job. Like, what are you doing with moss and sending it to Japan? It's amazing, isn't it? What exists out there as careers, well, not careers, but jobs.
Someone who I won't name here, who said that they were a window cleaner in Amsterdam's red light district. I'm not sure if they're joking though, Vince. Were they genuinely that job before they get into recruiting?
I don't know if pressing your face up against it, put your tongue out, makes you a job. But sorry.
So you have to be paid for it first.
Yeah,
you have to be paid for the job. Simon, we'll go with our next guest job story, if you don't mind.
Hey, Johnny and listeners to the Hiring Excellence podcast. This is Patrick Boonstra from Rotterdam. I've been in recruitment tech consultancy for about 15 years now. But one of my first jobs when I was 16 was actually as a cowboy dancing on stage. It started off with me as a 10-year-old boy going on Latin and ballroom dancing lessons. And apparently I was pretty okay. And then, so I danced a lot. And then at some point, my dancing school, they also supplied cowboy dancers and can-can girls. So at some point, I was on stage for 1,500 people doing line dancing. Crazy little job. I loved it. It scared the shit out of me. But in the end, just doing it and dancing for these people did make sure that I don't take myself too seriously and that I'm fairly comfortable in uncomfortable situations, even on stage. And I actually still use that, on my work now. So crazy little jobs, and take care.
So to be clear, Patrick, you use your cowboy dancing in your work now? I'm not really sure that's what you meant to say, but at 15 years knowing Patrick, I didn't know that, Vince. Did you?
No, I didn't. Although I can see him pulling it off. He's got the legs for it, definitely.
He's got that Woody look. I'll give him that. Yeah. Actually, did you know? I just found out Adam Gordon, who we both know well, have put in. I think he's come from a similar background to yourself, Vince. Explains a lot. He said that while a student, he was an extra. He was left on the train spotting cutting room floor, disappointingly, but was both a trainee architect and a cult member in Taggart, among others. That's a UK show from the 80s, I think, in the 80s and 90s, I recall. So I think your career in film was a little bit better than his career in film, to be fair.
And wrangling, I used to wrangle extras, and I got so bored. And you'd have the guy with the tweed suit that had to be there, and for a follow-up scene, and you turn around and the guy in the tweed suit has got pissed off and gone home, and you're then trying to find a similar looking person to dress them up in the tweed suit. Like, we had a nightmare. But at one time I had a dog that wanted to be an extra, kept coming on set. I actually had to fill him with I fed him an entire packet of digestive biscuits to keep him happy and away from the filming while we filmed. Poor thing vomited, but that's not my fault. He ate them, I didn't. But it's good.
Let's go to our next guest, Simon. Who else do we have?
Hi, this is Jeremy Roberts. I've been in the recruiting space since 2001. I am currently the founding customer success lead with Tenzo AI. I've had some wild and crazy jobs throughout my life. My first job was actually, I worked for a horse trainer, and I broke the horses before the trainer started working with them. So I'd ride them for about 2 months before they started. So that was a lot of fun, very Texas. The second crazy job I had, I was a balloon artist in college. I lived in LA. Every Monday I would call, it was a company called Balloon Abilities, and I would say, I'm available on these nights, and they would book me for private parties and restaurants around the Southern California area. And then the third craziest job I ever had was a limo driver. In 2008, the firm I was with stopped paying bonuses, and I needed some extra cash, so I started driving a limo, and the limo driving probably gave me the most stories, just dealing with crazy people. And I needed it for about a year, but I kept doing it for about 3 just because it was entertaining. So, all right, thanks for including me.
Jeremy would be a brilliant limo driver, wouldn't he? He's such good fun, so easy to chat to.
But also the balloon thing, you could use that now. Like Patrick, I'm not sure about his dancing, but the balloon stuff, I think you could use that all the time. Like, how handy would that be at parties?
So, Vince, I always think about, the skills you have, and are they zombie apocalypse skills? As in, if there's a zombie apocalypse, and it could happen, Vince, right? Would my skills as a recruiter be required? So, what can you do, Johnny? There's a zombie apocalypse. I can hire people. I don't think there's much need for a recruiter in a zombie apocalypse. But Jeremy, I think Jeremy would survive that. Balloon making, entertainment, driving people around, that would work.
Would be spritzing people.
Cleaning up the toilets, Vince. I think there's a job for you there, fella.
Everybody needs it. It's the second oldest job in history.
I have a couple more I'm going to call out here. Heather Samaras says she interned for David Letterman. I like that.
Oh, wow.
Continuing the celebrity piece. A couple of animal ones. Ashley Ball said she used to swim with sharks, doing daily scuba diving demonstrations and presentation talks from within the tropical shark tank of an aquarium. Pretty awesome job. And then we also have Aaron, and this is a bit grim to our point earlier on about goose wrangling. Aaron buried cattle during the foot and mouth crisis. That was grim.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of those piles. Well, they used to burn them in Ireland. I don't know if you remember the big piles.
Oh Jesus, let's not go there, Vince. Literally, that's not.
Well,
any vegetarian or vegan listening to this is
bad. But I saw Helen Bratt was an ice sculptor in an ice hotel in Lapland. Again, random stuff. David Martin, I coached the Swiss Olympic rowing team. There's a lot of talent.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
I feel like, and listen, not to discredit my profession, it's like, seriously, you brought that to recruiting, but there's a lot of sports people. A lot of people worked in sports or worked in some sort of selection, I think, which I get the transfer over to recruiting. Simon, let's jump in with somebody else though.
Hi, Johnny. My name is Elaine McCarthy. I'm working in recruitment for the past 20 years. The most recent 15 years have been working for Cisco. And I am a talent acquisition manager for our sales organization in EMEA. So a job that I had before I landed in recruitment, when I was a student studying in NUI Galway from a commerce degree, I used to clean the convent for the nuns that lived in my town. So they used to reward me in €8 an hour, in apples and rosary beads. So yeah, that's an interesting job I had. I always think back on my time there. I got to meet some lovely ladies. But I think they set me up for success in the future.
Never
They
have
didn't
two.
set her up to pay the bills though, did they?
Oh, yeah. With some rosary beads. You can never have too many rosary beads. Yeah. You see, Martin Lee, who we both know very, very well, sold condom machines. Didn't do demos, he said.
I'd say Martin has sold everything in his career. Currently working with Meta, I believe, helping in their sourcing team, and he's a legend. He's been on the platform before as well. Mary Claire Pierce, right? I'd hire Mary Claire for a job. She is currently a strategic talent acquisition manager, but she said she was selling a load of rubbish out of a black hole doll. Literally wheeled 20 full steak knife sets around a really tough part of Glasgow, and a wee rascal, no more than 10, tried to mug me for taking for talking elephant backpack.
Yeah. Glasgow. I once got in the middle of, love Glasgow, really like it, but you it's interesting. But I remember I got involved in I was in the middle with my wife. She wasn't my wife then, of a Coke can fight. It was people throwing Coke cans from one side of the square to the other side of the square, and we were in the middle. It's going, wow, impressive.
Probably because they're bored.
Stones.
I'm with you. People always go to Edinburgh. I love Glasgow or Glasgow more because Edinburgh's lovely and safe and touristy, but Glasgow, you might get stabbed. And I like that edge to a city. It's like a bit of character. You're probably safe in Edinburgh. You might get scammed, but you're not going to get stabbed. I do appreciate that. I got on a different tangent. Lisa Kim McLaren said she worked at the Disney store in Regent Street, London. Minnie Mouse ears on, greeting customers with a cheery Disney ditty. Favorite job was Plush Mountain, perfectly arranging all the stuffies at the end of the day. Fab job.
Cool. Well, Dustin Can, his first job was at a 7-Eleven convenience store my grandparents owned. Found it quite entertaining to buy cigarettes, lottery tickets, and malt liquor from a 14-year-old. It's funny, my son came with myself and Johnny to America for the first time a few weeks back, and I thought, oh yeah, he'll see all the sights and all the interesting stuff, and just experience America. And the thing that he only thing that he's 18 now, but the thing that he popped up with, Dad, look, a 7-Eleven. I was like, really? That's the love 7-Eleven, by the way. But that's the thing that got him excited. 7-Eleven from YouTube or wherever he saw 7-Eleven. It's funny how pop culture is the most interesting thing to 18-year-olds sometimes.
Well, you remind me just that story of 14-year-olds selling tobacco products. When I was a kid, from 11 years of age at my first job, by 13, I had 8 jobs. And one of the job I had from 11 was in a local video store, right? So Blockbuster, or it was equivalent of an Extravision here in Ireland. And there used to be stores where you actually had to rent movies, folks, depending on your generation. If you're our generation, know all about it. But I would have been 12 or 13, and people would have come in and asked for the Blue Book. And it was a folder with movies that you were probably responsible for helping make, Vince, it sounds, in your AD job. And you had to basically ask for the book from a spotty 13-year-old. And then we had a secret piece of carpet you'd lift, and underneath the floorboards, we had a secret compartment where all those videos were held. And they were literally blue. The video cassette was blue. Like, what a way to make it obvious. And then you hand them out to people and they rent them for the night.
I think we have to give some people some context as well. Pornography was not legal in Ireland up until, I don't know, yesterday sometime.
it must have been the late 90s. It was pretty insane.
Yeah. As were condoms illegal up until quite late.
So Martin Lee was working in Ireland back in the day.
Martin Lee wasn't going to make much money with condom machines in Ireland back in the day. When they took off, it really took off, in fairness.
Boom. All right, that's cue for our next story, Simon.
Hey Johnny, this is John Stewart, currently Global Head of TA for Dialectica, based in Athens. I've been around TA for 25 years or so, including a decade stint in RecAd. Maybe not the strangest job, but definitely a unique one and memorable. I worked in the VIP tent for the legendary Oasis concert in Nebworth in 1996. My sister knew someone who got us the gig, and so we ended up being paid about £30 a day to serve drinks and barbecued food to celebrities like Kate Moss, Anna Friel, Chris Evans, Stuart Pearce. On day 2, having completed the early shift, I remember heading out to watch Oasis play with a pint of Jack Daniels and Coke in my hand. And then later on that evening, my sister and I found ourselves in the VIP tent dancing with Keith Flint from The Prodigy. He had that green hair at the time and was shorter than my sister, I remember. Anyway, good times. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Cool.
That's a cool job, isn't it?
That's kind of cool. I think that beats mine. Even weirdly cleaning up a movie star's poo just isn't quite as cool as that at all.
Well, back in 1996, I was running the members bar in a nightclub in Ireland called The Pod, and we were the kind of celebrity nightclub. for Ireland, right? All the celebs came through us. So back then, 96, you mentioned Kate Moss there. All the supermodels used to come in. There was a big fashion show for charity that Brian Thomas locally had sponsored. And the supermodels came and they did, I think, the main arena in Dublin, and they did this event. I came into the pod afterwards. So we'd Naomi Campbell, because she was dating Adam Clayton at the time, was in there. Kate Moss and a bunch of others. And they would have worked the bar. We hosted the IRMA Awards, which were the Irish Music Industry Awards, and we had the Spice Girls playing Peter Andre, and I had to work just myself as the barman for the Spice Girls in our members area. They were brats. They were probably 19, 20 years of age, probably similar age to me, and they just were wild. I was sent out often, depending on the act that would come in. I was sent off. I was a manager in the kind of VIP downstairs, but I'd also have to look up the artists that played in the Red Box, the nightclub, the venue upstairs. I'd be sent off to kind of complete the riders. I remember the weirdest rider being the what you have to produce food, drinks for the band before they arrive, or the act. And in 1996 or 7 in Dublin, I was sent to get Fiji water. Probably most people know Fiji water, but 1996 in Dublin, it's like Fiji water. It was like no other water would do. On a Saturday night, driving for hours around the city with no internet to try and find out where I could find it, looking for bloody Fiji water. And the worst part was I found it and I was delighted, stacked it up. Whatever act, I can't remember who it was, played and left. I went back up to the changing room at 4 a.m. Every bottle of Fiji water is still there. Oh no. Untouched.
Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. Any more from the list for us that you picked out?
Yeah, Aaron McManus, his first job was back in the 90s as a telephone psychic. I quit after a few days because I hadn't realized as a teenager that it was such a huge scam. Is it?
I'd say he saw that coming.
Yeah, boom. Yeah. You want to question his skills, right? Yeah. Wow. Actually, I worked in a radio station. I forgot about this. I worked in it's now called Today FM in Ireland, was Radio Ireland. But I worked for about 3 or 4 months in a radio station there until they realized I was absolutely useless. But I was a researcher, and we used to bring in a psychic every week, and they do a psychic show. Oh my God, what garbage. But I had some good experiences there with some of the guests I brought in. Anyway, no, I'm going to go down a theme that you don't want to go, so I'll skip it. But I brought in some kind of more interesting guests.
I just cue our next guest there, Vince.
Yeah,
Simon, who's up next?
I don't want to go there.
Rob Lasik here. I have been in talent acquisition for 30 years, currently at IKS Health. My interesting job, my senior year in college at Kent State University, I was a criminal justice major. And I didn't want to be there until May. I went to my advisor. I said, I don't want to take a full load. Is there something else I can do so I can get out of here in December? He said, go down to the juvenile corrections facility, volunteer. I'll make the introduction, work a few hours a week, write a paper. We'll figure it out. I'll give you a full course credit. We'll get you out of here in December. Great. He made the intro. I showed up. I shook the guy's hand. 5 minutes later, he goes, you can't volunteer here. And I said, why not? He goes, I've got to hire you. You're a beast. I was 6 foot, 200 pounds, 100 years ago. So I ended up working there. And I spent 5 years in juvenile corrections right out of college. And it was crazy. There was crazy days. Mostly it was calm, and it was very structured and controlled. Our worst days were after visitation, after the parents left, because most of these kids, honestly, were there because of their parents. We always joked about, we should have a wing for parents, lock them up too. But just a great, rewarding initial part of my career. But there was no money, so I had to move on. Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
Rob's such a good guy. We got to hang out with him in Dallas a few weeks ago. That makes sense. He's a good egg.
Yeah. I wouldn't mess with him either. Big guy.
I've got a few more. I have another Mark here. Mark Woodford used to work at Walt Disney World before I got into recruitment at a German-themed restaurant, wearing authentic lederhosen and serving liters of beers to guests at a time. At 35 degrees centigrade, at about 100 Fahrenheit, what could possibly go wrong?
Wow. Him and Patrick Boonstra on stage. That's a movie.
I think you can make more.
Jeremy,
you doing balloons?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark Dubel. Before I went into a normal career at the Navy, I had a short stint mowing grass at a graveyard at 5 a.m. in the morning. Creepiest job ever at 16 years old. Yeah, I think I'd struggle with that one. We used to actually, back to the movie stuff. We used to film at about 5 a.m. in graveyards on the like literally over the Atlantic in Connemara in Ireland, and we'd film like horror scenes there. I always felt it was a bit inappropriate because it just felt we were, shouldn't have been there. But always felt a bit creepy at like 4 or 5 in the morning because they always filmed really early. But so Mark, I feel your pain.
I just realized, Vince, you'd mentioned the psychic, and we actually have that psychic story, I think, ready to share. So I know you gave a hint at it, but Simon, you might dig out that psychic story that one of our guests shared with us, or one of our listeners shared with us.
Hey, my name is Aaron McManus, and I'm a senior tech recruiter for a big company. I've been in HR and recruiting for over 20 years now, and nearly 30 years ago, I was a telephone psychic. I was only 15 at the time, and I saw an ad in the newspaper for a work-from-home job with something like the Psychic Friends Network or whatever that was offering paid training, so I figured, what the heck? And I called the number. The training was pretty minimal. The goal was to keep people on the phone at $5 a minute. The basic formula of each call was pretty similar. Up until now, your life has been full of challenges, and no one has really truly recognized just how incredible you are. But this is a time of massive transformation and change, so from now on, everything is going to be different. And in the future, even though there might be some rough patches ahead to work through, things are going to be great for you and get a whole lot better. It turned out I was a pretty good psychic. People liked hearing that a lot. I quit after a few days as I slowly realized in my teenage brain that I was just scamming people. Years later, I'd find out the same thing about some of the recruiting agencies I was working for, so maybe there's a larger lesson there that I'll learn after I get out of my own transitional time and things get much, much better.
Wow, I should have really seen that coming. I took his punchline, I took his story before his time. But there's another, Heath Sellers, in following on from Martin Lee, who sold the things. Heath Sellers' first job was in recruiting at a condom factory. True story. And there was actually a position that I hired for, condom tester. Not exactly what you're thinking right now, but a condom tester. I wonder. Seriously. Wow.
If I can be bold and continue the theme, we've got Miles Stribling. He said, I was a security guard at a brothel in Sydney. The venue, and he has that in quotes, wasn't open at the time and was undergoing a major refurb. The owner told me if there was any trouble, there was a gun under the counter wrapped in a towel. On my last shift, my curiosity got the better of me. I found the towel, unwrapped it, and found a sawn-off broom handle. Good job there wasn't any trouble.
Wow. That's kind of scary though. Yeah, a friend of mine had a brothel opened up in an apartment underneath his house, those basement apartments in Dublin. And a brothel opened up. And yeah, he had to politely go down and ask them would they move along. Which they did, in fairness. But yeah, it's
surprising. Maybe they were the description of the guy Rob described in terms of that big person to try and scare them away, I think we have one last video, by the way, Vince, and then I want to share my one last story. Maybe you might find your one last story before we go into it. But Simon, let's go with our last video.
My name is Chris Brady, and I currently lead a company called Brady Advisory Group, where we help organizations hire executive talent as well as fix some of their talent acquisition problems. My really weird, interesting job was, before I got into recruiting, I actually was in the chimney sweeping business. I worked for another business, and then I had my own business. When I came home and told my wife that I was going to do chimney sweeps, she looked at me like, you're crazy, you don't like heights. So it took a little for me to kind of talk myself into getting on a ladder and going up 3 or 4 stories. And a lot of the houses that we were working on, unfortunately, were very old, over 100 years old, in an area in Atlanta called the Virginia Highlands. So that was a really interesting time in my life where I had to face my fears, but also I got to work with people and manage a crew at one point of 3 or 4 people driving around in a van that said Lucky Sweeps on the side of it, And here's me walking out and trying to sell you some maybe extra services or something to do to make sure that your house is safe. Hopefully that helps. Merry Christmas, everyone. And thank you, Johnny, for the invite.
I can see Chris going up a chimney, you know?
Chris is great. He's a great guy, by the way. If you don't know Chris, do connect with them. But like little Oliver, like just really, is that still a job? Was that still a job 20 years ago? Do people still, I guess you still get your chimney swept?
I think you're Fagin and I'm Oliver, just in this world. But I get seduced into this world of recruiting by you, you know, taking it off the streets. Anyway,
Go with your last one.
I go with my last one, and it's from Dennis Tupper.
You've stolen my last one as well. Well, you go and take it. I think it's the best.
Sure?
You're dead right.
It
Go
is
for it.
Absolutely in class for the two Irish people. We're like, oh my God, this is a job. So Dennis was paid by the Massachusetts State Police to drink beer. Boston's in Massachusetts. There's an Irish connection. They had us drink 3 at a time, wait 15 minutes. Only three. And they had to wait 15 minutes. Wow. Blow in a breathalyzer to measure, then repeat. I did this 3 times in 3 hours, totaling 9 beers in 2 hours, 15 minutes of drinking time. That's pretty impressive, actually. Then they let in the rookie state police. They had given us field sobriety tests and judge our levels of impairment. They put us against their breathalyzer tests and told them how accurate they were or inaccurate. I made $7 per hour, had to claim on my taxes using drinking subject as the title. They mandated that they drive us to and from our liability purposes. I'd do it again, but likely would only total 3 beers in that time, this time around. It was wonderful. That's a good story, Dennis. That's a job. That's a job. Like, where do we apply? And I imagine to free
9 beers in 2 hours, 15 minutes. Like,
and the lift home.
it's brilliant. We are not recruiting for those jobs, I'm afraid, folks. But if you do see one advertised, please respond. It's probably a scam. Looking at Dennis, I'm suggesting that was a number of years ago. Dennis, thanks for closing it out.
Is that our winner? Is it our winner?
I think that's our winner. For me, that's my winner. It's like the job I'd most like to do and go back to. Dennis in Boston has nailed it. That's it, by the way, Vince. We're well over. Just this podcast doesn't last this long. Just to be clear, we're going on and on. People want us gone. No one's even listening, but they've finished at this point.
Oh, they'll cut us in editing. They'll strip it down. Strip out all my comments.
Well, Vince, pleasure having you in Hiring Excellence. Thanks for sharing your examples of jobs not to do. You're going to have a career in recruiting.
Well, you got to start somewhere. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Cheers.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with our regular schedule in the new year. Until then, have a great holiday.